Looks like we're live. I think I am officially. I love this. I love this. Yeah. Okay. I think I've got to go ahead. A very good afternoon to wherever you are. And this is once again another lovely session on a beautiful hot day. Thank God I'm inside. It's 34 degrees here in Perth, Western Australia. And today we've been looking forward for this for a very long time. This is the one and only brilliant, straight up beginning of the year session that's going to be on the 190 and the 491 visas for the state of Western Australia, which is something that we've been anticipating to talk about for some time. And today, I'm going to be doing something different. But firstly, I should introduce myself. So this is Dharmindher Singh from Canning Vale office, from the Aussizz Group, obviously. And previously, we would go ahead, talk about something, and people will post questions, and I'll see some questions on the site. I've realized a lot of times there's a lot of anxiety surrounding the state nomination 190 and 491 visas, which is all we're going to talk about the time that we have first. And any spill over time, maybe we'll talk about something else. But let us just literally, for everybody else who've been tuning in or who've registered their interest, who's really interested in this, let's concentrate on that. Let's ask the questions that you have about anything pertaining to requirements, cutoff, ceilings, your chances, your options, and all those wonderful things that you're going to come across. So bring it on. You're going to have all these questions. So I'm really very excited about this. I'm also definitely going to talk about some of the stuff that perhaps some people are very new towards putting in their first ever maiden EOI and what does it mean, just to understand that, as opposed to some of you very seasoned people who are already in the system, just waiting for your one and only invite for 190, or because you've been invited for 491 and all of that. So spare thought for others who have just joined in, who are just getting into the game right now in terms of understanding what the chances are. So I might talk about something that might be something that you're already familiar with. So just bear in mind, okay? So here we go. Feel free again. Okay, I already got questions coming in from LinkedIn user, Alvin, all good, very good stuff. I want to have all the questions fill up on the site before I look into the questions right now, which I can see, right? So first and foremost, let's understand one thing. If you primarily are a graduate from Western Australia and you've completed 2 years of study, and if you have, and you're residing here preferably, because we'll talk about preference given to who in terms of the EOI, being in demand, not demand, but you know what I'm trying to say, that you get a better chance of being invited. So if you're a student, you've studied 2 years here, your occupation has been assessed and you've put in an EOI, and your occupation is one of the occupations on the graduate occupation list, GOL for short, then you should have been invited as soon as the last financial year began, which was July last year. So July right now, so August, September, October, November, brilliant. They had unbelievable number of invitations for not just the graduate stream, but also on a Schedule 2, which is the other stream that we want to talk about. So this is for people who are not graduates from WA, but have a skills assessment done, and their occupation is what is deemed as on Schedule 2, meaning that you are not a graduate here, but you're on Schedule 2. You are also, and maybe, depending on some of the occupations, and they've introduced a lot of occupations of late, and you may be on Schedule 2, meaning you might, in some instances, if it's a 190 invitation, might be required to meet certain criteria, and then 491 conversely. So we'll talk about that shortly. So once again, the GOL, graduate occupation list, as well as the Schedule 2, and in some cases, the Schedule 1, will go into that shortly, okay? So now, if you are on an existing visa that gives you, let's call it, you have enough oxygen in your tank. That's if you're a good swimmer. And you know your 485 or whatever visa that you have, your 408 COVID visa or your student visa for that matter. And you've applied an EOI, which stays in the system for 2 years. Remember that. So what will happen is you can only just wait for an invitation to arrive. And when the invitation arrives, depending on your points. Now, for the graduate occupation list and Schedule 2, I'm going to talk about the 190 and 491 together, okay? But just understand that. Let's talk about the 190 first. So 190 basically is state-sponsored visa. Some people like to think that it's an immediate visa. Well, it is, as compared to the 491, obviously. 491 is a temporary visa where you've got to meet certain requirements, which we'll go into that shortly. But the 190, it's popular. It's a PR of sorts, where if you're invited, just like the 491, if you're invited, after putting in your expression of interest, you have 28 days upon invitation to accept that invitation. In which time, the department, not the federal, but the State Department or state office will ask you specific information to show proof that you were residing here, you were studying here, you know, and all of those wonderful things to say that if you're a graduate, then they will need proof of the fact that you were a graduate, or if you were residing here on Schedule 2, they need proof that at least in the last 3 months at least, or what they deem as latest, and that's an important word there, latest evidence that you are residing down here, in which the invitation will happen. And once you get that, they might take another month and a half, two, to check through, do this and that, the other, because there's thousands of invitations that's been invited. Goodness me, has easily more than 15,000 since last September. Did I say 15,000? Yes, 15,000, right? When you consider the quota that the WA have at the same time, which is around about 8,000 for both the 491 and the 190. I know some of you have been thinking, hey, hang on, how does it stand for me? What are my chances to get an invite and all of that? We'll go into that later. So imagine when you're invited, 28 days to accept the invitation to provide this information to the state nomination team. They check, they verify whatever they need to. Mostly, like I said, if you're residency or if you're a student down here or if you've studied down here and all of those things. So that can take 1-2 months, in some cases maybe 3, because of the volume that they're dealing with right now, in which they give you what is called an approval. When they approve, you have about 20 days to accept that approval. And when you accept that approval, it's a case of signing 2 pieces of document, you give it back to them, they go, yep, fantastic. Then they generate a link from which, upon the link being generated, you have then close to exactly 60 days to launch their corresponding visa, whatever that might be, the 190 or the 491. Now, remember what I said about oxygen in your tank? Now, depending on how much time you've got left. Now, if you are in a situation, God forbid, that you've been invited and your existing visa is about to end, and you don't want to go on a student visa, or you don't want to go on anything else, the state nomination do not make any exemptions unless it's a case-by-case basis, I've been told, and I've done this for a few of my clients, where they speed it up a little bit in terms of they make a decision that an approval is generated. Once that happens, brilliant, then you're easy. Otherwise, you've got to find other means to go about that. So let's go back a step or two now. We're talking about graduate occupation list first, okay? So if you've been invited for 190 and 491, happy days. And if you're not fussy, brilliant, the process I just mentioned to you, you get approved, they give you the link and you launch, and then you relax and you carry on, whatever the case is. 190, as you know, it's a PR. You have to stay in the state for 2 years upon the grant and then meet some of the requirements to show that you are living, working, doing whatever that you're doing. Now, I'm going to mention something. If you are on a existing visa, you've been invited and they generate the link and you launch this application, whatever that might be, 190 or 491. When you lodge, you're going to get a bridging visa. Okay, usually it's a bridging visa A because you already hold an existing visa. If it's a student visa that you're holding, you're going to continue studying. If it's a 485 TR, guess what? The 485 will just carry on as per normal. So until, depending on your occupation, until you are actually a holder of, if it's a 190, then you cannot stop studying or you cannot do anything else because you're still on a bridging visa. Remember that. That's a very, very important thing. So the same thing applies also for the 491. Because 491, so 190, you guys are clear. If you've got a question for 190, you can specifically put a question afterwards. But I want to just, not deviate from my chain of thought down here. So if it's a 491, remember, if you're invited, let's use an occupation as your, let's take one occupation, you're an aeronautical engineer, or goodness me, accountants always is, because it's one of the A's right on the top. If you're an accountant, you've been invited, you've lodged your application, you're on a bridging visa, you can work in any occupation. You don't necessarily need to be an accountant anymore. Just remember that, okay? So now, because that is the case, until you're a holder of the 491, you have to continue, carrying on the bridging visa for whatever period of time. Could be 3, 4, 6 months, or 12, God forbid. Once you're a holder of that 491, you can work in any occupation, literally, right? So you're not that bound to change anything else, like previously where you had to provide, upon invitation, you have to show that you have 6 months of experience, or if you don't have that, you're going to go and get a job offer letter, contract. All that has been removed. Brilliant, right? It's been like that for quite some time now, the last 6 months. So this is all very, very good stuff. That's only for the graduate occupation list, okay? So now, imagine once you are a holder of that, I want to talk about something quite specific. A lot of you would have claimed 10 points for being single. Stay single. Goodness me. 10 points. Don't get married yet, okay? If you're on a 190 and you claim single points, you cannot get married. I get these questions a lot of time. Oh, gee, I applied my EOI and I put single 10 points and now I've got an invitation, but my family is pressuring me. I'm going to get married. What do I do? Not a marriage counselor, but I can tell you one thing. If you claim single points, you've lodged your application, you cannot get married. It's just simple as that, because that's what it allows you for the 190, okay? So until you're a holder of the 190, you cannot get married. Simple as that. So that's very, very clear. So don't ask me, is there any way around it? What if I don't register? I leave it to your devices. I don't want to comment on that right now. 491 is different. 491, once you become a holder of the 491, you can apply through what is called a subsequent entry visa, which is not bad. So the partner can join you as a subsequent entrant because for the duration of time that you are on the 491 in the first three years, right? Which is really, really very good. So the person gets added on and then they carry on as per normal, so that even though you claim single points, you can get married whilst you're on that. So just remember that. So if you are having that kind of situation, or if that thing is more applicable to you, then you can email me separately, or you can post a question and I can take it from there. So recap quickly. Graduate occupation list, no problems. You know the list. There's a lot of occupations down there. You've been invited. Graduate occupation list does not need a job offer letter or proof of 6 months of experience whatsoever. Brilliant. Okay. So if you're in a position to do that right now, go ahead. And did I also say previously you needed to have 7 each to apply? Not anymore. Not anymore. 6 each is the requirements, but 6 each you don't get points. 7 each is where you get points. And that's the next thing that I want to talk about. How do you increase your chances of an invite? Pretty much, right? Open up a little thing down here. It says, where is it down? I'll put out some information down here. Okay. So maybe not this. We'll come back to that. So if you're residing here, if you studied here, and depending on when you lodge your EOI, and depending on the ceilings for some of the occupations, and again, all those other variables set aside, they determine how soon you can get invitation. Now you can go to the state nomination site. You can click on the left-hand corner where invitation rounds. You can actually see previously, right up from September, October, November, what was the cutoff point? Because I can already anticipate some people asking me questions. Oh, I'm on 75 points. I'm an IT guy or engineer. What are my chances for getting only the 190? So the information is all down there because I can't look into every single question and then tell you. But if you're very specific and you're that desperate, which I can understand, then you can email me separately, then I can take the question from there. So let's coming back to that, right? So they have cutoff in determining who gets the invitation in that sense. So a lot of people sometimes only want, say, the 190, and they don't realize that they've put in an EOI for both. The minute you put an EOI for both, let me tell you, the minute you have higher points in a particular visa, which in this case is 491, the system will invite you only on 491. And then you'll be like, gee, I don't know. I only want the 190. And that's when you have the problem. So if you think you have some time and you want to take a calculated risk, go ahead, apply only the 190. I do this for my clients. I apply the 491, but I suspend it. I kind of wait, see, what the feel is. And if you think there's a lot of movement in regards to the 190, brilliant. Then you get the 190, at least secure that, okay? So I think that's important. But for some people, they're not fussy. They go, I don't want to take any risk. I don't want to be subject to any changes. I'm happy with a 491. Then so be it. Secure it. And let me tell you something. A lot of people are not aware of this. You've studied. You've paid this money. You're on your 485. You've done skills assessment. Goodness me, you probably sat for your English exam a couple of times and you're finally ready to get the invitation. And then what happens? Policy changes. Occupation is no longer on the list. Federal changes something. State has to abide by that. Quota changes. And then you're like, oh my God, I should have just applied. These are the things that you and I got no control over. So you just remember, don't risk it. And if you got the time, if you got a family, if you got kids or whatever the case is, just do it. Just accept. Just imagine if there wasn't a 190, you would take a 491, isn't it? So that's what I'm trying to say. I'll come back to some questions again. I love the questions that are slowly filling up, and I will answer the questions shortly, okay? So now the other thing I want to jump on is if the graduate occupation list is clear, fantastic. That seems to be a very, very good thing. But before I move on to Schedule 2, I want to mention something. The reason why they have the graduate occupation list, they want to incentivize the graduates who are from WA. Why not? And that's why they have a specific list of specific occupations who now don't need the job offer, don't need the contract, don't need 6 each, don't need 7 each. Sorry, you can have that with 6 each in English and you can apply. Previously, there never was a Schedule 2. Previously, people not from WA, if you're not a graduate from here, there wasn't that. So now they've introduced the Schedule 2 and the Schedule 1. The Schedule 2 basically means you are residing in Australia, you've studied here naturally, and you have applied through those means. And because you're not a graduate, to put it very simply, then you are invited usually on higher points, okay? And most of them usually get invited for 491, and in some cases a 190 at the same time, but on very high points, very high points. So just I want to say to you, if you're invited for 190 on Schedule 2, and you would need, obviously, to accept that within the 28 days that I told you, but for 190, you need a job offer letter in that occupation. Hopefully, to start within the 3 months or from when you just had the invitation, they kind of give you that time to secure that in terms of putting a start date, end date, salary, and benefits. A proper contract. It's just not, just write on a piece of paper. Like some people have done that. I'm like, seriously? You're not supposed to do that. So if you can provide that, then your 190 moves on. For 491 on Schedule 2, not required, which is good. So that means you just get an invitation and you're like, thank God, I'm in. Now, a lot of you are taking this crazy risk of putting in at 491 or 190 on Schedule 2, and you're not here. Now be careful, because when the department does ask you or something like that does happen, you need to be residing here, because that's what they would want to ask you. That's what they want to know. and do the right thing is what I'm trying to say to you. And when you do, you just get the right result, and you just have peace of mind, and everything else is okay. And they are inviting. They are realizing that a lot of students, really who have gone through all the lengths to do a skills assessment and studied, and then that's why you are, coming into down here. So the department will ask you those things to show residency, to show a utility bill, to show proof that you're residing down here. And then when you do all of that, that's what it will take 1-2 months, give you the thumbs up, approval comes in, and then you launch your corresponding visa, and then you should be all good. And then whatever happens after that, from the visa standpoint, that's another matter altogether. Whether you got to do your AFP or police clearances from your respective countries, that's all another matter altogether. So just remember, if, again, I didn't want to go into those kind of stuff. Looking at the time, it's 3:28, is brilliant. So if you are either a graduate on Schedule 2 and you're preferably residing here, you will and you should get an invitation. Now, people have been invited on 65 points on 491, and they're like, oh my God, brilliant, they're happy. And then there are others who still don't want to, oh, I think I got time, I want to wait for 190, good luck. Carry on. All I can say to you is that. So I'm going to take, let's see. So that's pretty much it. I want to look at some of the questions, and I'm going to scroll up here and see what are some of the questions. Oh, fantastic. Let's take it from the top. See what have we got. Alvin, you said you are all, oh, okay, remember hard earned money, till then, real score, and stop giving false hopes. Goodness me, I didn't even see your question. I don't know what you mean by you're all ripping them off. Hopefully you're talking about someone else. But in any case, either you've been badly dealt with, the real score, I don't know what the real score is. The real score is what's on the state website. Alvin seems like he's from the Philippines. ¿Cómo está? Mabute, or the thing I don't know. Alvin, you can talk to me separately if you need to. LinkedIn user, why is Department of Home Affairs not giving grant on time, increased processing time, everything? Good question. It's in the news. They've been talking about it both on many platforms as to why they are now hiring more people. I mean, that's in the Department of Immigration. They realize that, this processing time is really hitting them very hard in terms of really attracting skill migration into the country. They are spending a lot of resources apparently to, like I said, increase or speed up the processing time. Lately, we've also noticed that some of the applications that we've done, we compared that with the ones that we launched a year and a half ago and to what they are right now. There seem to be a lot of improvement right now. So I'm on your side as well. I hope that it's ridiculous. I got some clients who are accountants on 491 or a year and a half they had to wait. That's just ridiculously insane, right? So I hope somebody's or even looking, maybe from the department side, they look at this and they actually, take your point across. Gulsimran, what are the chances for 190? Goodness me, that's a flat out simple question. What is the chances for 190? I've already said to you, right? If you're a graduate down here, chances are good, very good. I've got accountants who are invited on 65 points. I got people who literally, seriously, very good. The quota is still healthy so far, fingers crossed. So let's hope. Someone says, it's popular. Don't know what that means. But the time frame, oh God, correct. Time frame it's a bit of a problem, Sumit. Now, kindly drop your questions in the comments below. Okay, that's from Janvi. Okay, Shahid Ali Khan. Sounds like you're a very good singer, Shahid Ali Khan, or either a good tabla player. Okay, but let me see what he says. You're a mechanical engineer. Brilliant. I've applied for WA as a mechanical engineer offshore aspirant. I like that you got aspirant spelling correct. With 75 points, so what are my chances? Look, very good, I must say, because they did indicate as much as preference is given to people who are residing down here, barring quota, people have been invited, offshore applicants at the same time, right? So fingers crossed, you've also applied for 491, not just the 190, okay? Shahid, I hope that makes sense. Hitul Patel, how much chances for civil engineering professional for WA 491? civil engineer. Goodness me, you're one of the top 10 professionals right now. They are all looking at you guys. They're looking at, of course, not just the teachers and the nurses and all of that. They're looking into people like yourself at the same time. For 491 WA including state. So which means you are only on 60 points. Wow. Okay. So remember, 491 operates on the basis that if you already have 70 points of your own, plus the state obviously is 85, they're just going to operate on highest points sort of a thingy. Okay, it's live, I'll say it. Here's my take. My personal take is, if you're not fussy, and everybody else is jumping onto the 190 and 190, and then a lot of clients have been invited for 491. They're not accepting it for some reason, some of them, not all. Why? Because they feel, oh, I think I'll get a 190. Think about it. You just put a 491. Of course, you put a 190 as well, because if you get that, it's a bonus. It will happen. I don't know how long you've put that EOI, but it doesn't say that to me at all. But put it and pray. Should be getting it. Karanpreet, let's come back to you. What are your chances of chef 80 points WA? Yeah, you see? I need all these chefs to be all waiting and whatnot. Let me read the questions again. Chances of chef, 80 points for WA, EOI launch in December. Wow. So your December, you are playing catch up with a lot of people who got invited in September, October, and November, I must say, okay? So you must be very, very careful, because your 80 points for 190 is high, I must admit. 80, 85 have been invited for chef. You can see that on their website at the same time. And also internally, I think Aussizz did publish some of our breakdown in terms of what were the points that we got some of our clients under. The other part of your question is 189.75 points. Please tell me you've applied for your 189 at the same time, because I got clients on 65 points who were invited for chef on 189. Go figure that out. Nobody anticipated, whilst COVID times and while we were in the lockdown maybe a year ago or that, nobody thought they were going to be invited on 65 points as a chef. A lot of my clients, I just lodged their EOIs, forgot about it. Surprise, surprise. They need people. Things have happened. Some divine intervention have moved. They really do need people. And the 189s, these guys were very happy when they got invited on 65 points. So if you haven't put an EOI, Karan, put an EOI, okay? Now, what have we got? What are the chances? Again, he's asked the same question. Goodness me. He's asked the same question 4 times. Karan, doesn't matter how many times you ask the question. I think I've already answered the question. Ashi, I see Ashi's got a question. I did a degree, bachelor's in criminology. Planning to do masters in IELTS. What do I do for my IELTS? What do you do for your IELTS is, I suppose you need to get in touch with our education team. They will be the best people to tell you. I'm happy to filter your question up to them. Most of the time, some of the courses that you want to do might require specific IELTS. So, for example, if you want to do nursing, they have a very strict requirements, nursing, English, and some of the other subjects. They might need 7 each. So if you need to be pressed for that, then you might need that. Perhaps you might get away with 6.5 or something like that. I'm happy for you to email me and I can forward that question to my team. Sneha, she says, how much time would it take to get an invitation after filing an EOI? Again, very common, standard question, good question nonetheless. It's a little bit like lotto though, okay? We've put in EOIs within 3 days of the usual anticipation, which is usually the 3rd week of the month in which the invitation happens. God forbid, somebody has not done it differently, and if the EOI is done correctly, within 3 days you've been invited. It has happened before at the same time. And then there have been some people who've lodged an EOI for 6-7 months, depending on ceilings, depending on where they are, depending on so many other factors. They're just never invited. So you need to be mindful of those factors. So it's where you are, your points, when did you apply your EOI, And those are the little factors that determine, whether you're a graduate down here or you're applying on Schedule 2 or Schedule 1 to be able to get an invitation. So remember those things at the same time. I thought my screen moved. Okay, it didn't. So Sneha, I hope that answers your question. Chitana says, can we change the state after getting a grant for 190? Common question, but an important one. The state have invited you. They've taken their time to invite you. They've given you the 190. Now, I've done this for a few people who were here, but then they got a job in New South Wales. Now, states, they work mysteriously nice ways. You can either write to them, you can tell them that, because remember one of the undertakings, I think there are 14 undertakings when you sign this acceptance, when they invite you, is that the state is not promising you a job. But if you happen to get a job and if things were pressing that you had to move because of that, I think it's a little bit of a case-by-case basis. You can write to them and tell them that this is what has happened, and they might let you to go. Otherwise, I think you might just have to stay around here. See, some people do the right thing. Some people let the state know that their movement, their addresses, and this and that. Some people don't. Go figure that out. If you want to be one of those who thinks, it's okay, my friend has done it, it hasn't bothered me, nobody has asked us any questions, then you're taking your own risk in that department. Okay, so Karanpreet, for the 5th time, I think I've answered your question, Karanpreet. Okay. Hello, sir. Does international teachers forms part of skill visa? Why not? You are a teacher, and if your occupation is on the list and you've applied for your skills assessment, I've done that with AITSL for some teachers. This is their skill assessing body. They've got very good points because they have special requirements for English. They've been invited, no problems whatsoever. So the answer to that question is yes. Rajesh Kumar wants to know, how about GTI visa? How about it? Because that's not the topic down here. GTI is another topic. We can discuss that another time. Sorry, Rajesh. Zuhil, hi sir, I'm based in Queensland and waiting for an invite for 189, 190. I'm thinking of moving to WA. Okay, Zuhil, Juhil, is it? It's Juhil, yeah, sorry. Juhil, not Zahil. Juhil, if you can get in touch with me and tell me firstly, or if you want, you can write there, it's up to you. If you can tell me how many points did you apply and what occupation, I can kind of give you an idea, just where you are at the same time. But I can guarantee you one thing, and for everybody else at the same time, the minute you show that you're residing down here, bingo, you get an invitation. Seriously speaking, right? A lot of my clients have done that. So make it a point. Get into, of course, I know it's hard. It's very logistically ridiculous to pack up, pick up and everything, and then come here and then change the EUI, and then you pray that you get an invite. I get that. But a lot of them have been invited. All I can say is that, okay? Akash, how's year 2023, 24 looks like from my point of view? I like that. I could be philosophically challenged and give you that answer from that angle or whatever, but I really, really think if you read between the lines of everything else that's been published elsewhere, and I really like this question actually. I've been living in Perth, goodness me, for more than 34 years. 34 years is a long time. I've been doing this for 13 years in migration. And I can tell you one thing. WA, I'm a bit biased. I'm like a little ambassador of WA. I like WA. WA is bullish. Oil and gas state, mining, things are looking good. We've jumped from a quota of 2,500 before, and then we asked 5,000. Look, we got 8,000. We need numbers. Things are going to pick up. Things are going to improve. If they run out of quota, for example, like historically, sometimes they did come February, March, maybe there'll be a close for 2 months or whatever the case is. They will ask for more. They really do need numbers, and not just WA is just going to need numbers. All the other states might get that because there's a strong federal push towards making sure that we really fill up the numbers down here. So that's what my personal view is, if that's your question. Okay, Ajay says, I did MBA in marketing with 5 years of experience in healthcare marketing, and I'm doing project management course here in Australia. Wow. Ajay, you look very qualified. Goodness me, you really look qualified. I'm looking at your question, project management, but what's your assessment? You got to get an occupation that's on the skills list. You got to get a skills assessment. You check whether marketing specialist or whatever else is out there. If it is, your chances, project management, all that kind of stuff, or people who've done MBA, you've got to find an occupation. Previously, project program administrator used to be a job title. So if you can get an assessment from that, you need to work 1 year in that capacity, meet the corresponding skills assessment requirement, then you apply, and then that's your chances increases in that sense. So your first point of call is Ajay, right? So Ajay, you really need to find an opportunity to see if you can get a skills assessment done first. And if you're stuck, if you didn't know how to, what to do, again, you can contact me separately. More than welcome, and I'm more than happy to answer your question. Rajesh, good questions, guys. I really love that. I think that's what this is all about. And I'm sharing my expertise in my time with you guys because I want you guys to benefit from this. It's not about me telling, oh, yeah, you do this and that, the other. I understand how difficult it is. I was a student once upon a time. Goodness me, 30 years ago. 30 years ago. Let's reminisce about that. Anyway, moving on. Looking at the question from Rajesh. I'm into cybersecurity, but as an entrepreneur, not employed in an MNC. You're cybersecurity, but you're an entrepreneur. So how can I help you, Rajesh? If you can tell me you are having difficulty in trying to get a skills assessment in cybersecurity, perhaps I can tell you what you would need to do. Because firstly, if you are in cybersecurity, which is a very popular, very hot topic right now, or occupation, you need to show 2 years of experience, or if you've studied down here, then you do a professional year, then you get a skills assessment, or if you're from overseas, 2 years of work experience, show that you've actually worked in that line, and then you get a skills assessment and you apply, pretty much. LinkedIn user, I'm awaiting an invite from government of the submission review. By what time? South Australian government? Okay. Go figure out South Australian government. I hope you're mentioning WA government invite, but South Australia, I don't know what their timeline is. I think like most of the states, if their quota is full, or if they suddenly had like what we did in WA, goodness me, September, October, November was crazy. They just invited 3,000, 4,000, bang, bang, bang. A lot of invitations went out. So that was all very good, right? So I hope that answers your question. Where is this little mouse? Okay. Rajesh. Request, please check. Okay. Preeti Kaur, what about the age criteria for teaching with 9 years of experience? What about that, Preeti? Tell me. When you say age criteria, 9 years of, I'm not getting specifically what you're trying to say. Are you talking about the fact that if you've got 9 years of experience, are you able to get a skills assessment wherever you are? And if you are, I'm just trying to understand the question, age criteria. State nomination, you get points if you are, between 25 to 32, you get maximum 30 points. And if you are above, from that to 33 to 39, then that's another 25. And then if you're over that, if that's your question, then you drop to 15 points. So if that's your question, then maybe that's something that I can answer separately. What have we got? Raj Kumar, I have another question. Should I come to Australia to do a 2 years course and then search for jobs and then apply for PR? Why not? Rajesh, if that's what you want to do, but that's not an easy thing to advise someone to go ahead and do, isn't it? You come down. If you are already qualified, instead of coming down to study, you could find an employer likes you, have a solid profile, apply for a 186, which is a direct employer-sponsored visa, which is even better. But you need a skills assessment, and you obviously need the 3 years of experience, which you need to demonstrate. 3 years, not 2. Sean Ilahi, how's it going? Someone I recognize. Hi, Sean. Let's see, Sean, your question, obviously I know you intimately. You're my client. How are you? How are they going to manage 8 quota with 14K invites? That's the question I was telling you about offline, remember? They work in mysterious ways, right? But it's a question I'm happy to answer at the same time. So they may have 16,000 invites, but all those invites need not necessarily progress to a person actually accepting it. And sometimes the state nomination, I'm happily looking at the camera directly, can tell you they have made mistakes on inviting some of my clients who are graduates and have applied a graduate occupation list, and they've invited them on Schedule 1 and Schedule 2. I'm like, what are you doing? So there have been a lot of those things that factor into the numbers at the same time. So do the maths. I still feel there's a lot of chances. Your application, Sean, is progressing. I'm not going to tell everybody what your application is, but you know, so progressing, fingers crossed, okay? Mohan Gimri. This person seems familiar. Gimri is, Mohan, I don't know, sounds like a client's name. Hello, Dharmindher. Okay, I've just launched a visa for 491. My question is, am I still eligible for 189 visa? Do I need to wait for the next financial year? Yeah. Why not? You are not a holder yet, so you've applied. Game on. You're definitely eligible for the 189. Speaking of which, I wanted to just quickly mention this at the same time. So a lot of you must remember this very important point. Once I saw Mohan's question, it just reminded me of something. In this financial year, you've been invited, and you can only be invited many times, no problems. But if you've accepted the 491, you've been invited and you accept the 491, then you're locked in. You cannot be invited for the 190 in this financial year. So just understand that. But if you've been invited and they spend 28 days for you to accept it, and you go and they spend another 1 month, 2 months in approving it, but you also got a 190 in the system, fantastic, you wait. Most of my clients are doing that. They wait for both. The minute 190 is given, we tell them, thank you very much, we don't need the 491. Happy days. That's exactly what I do. So just remember, this is how we play around with that. Karanpreet, he's added the same question, but he said study completed in Victoria. Yeah, your study can be completed wherever, but your chances for 190 as a chef on 80 points are not very good. You have better chances on 189 on 80 points than on 190 in WA. Okay, just remember that, because you're not a WA graduate. Karan, I hope that makes sense. Prava. Laxman Naidu, what are the chances for electrical engineering with 65 points currently deciding? Oh, Lakshman, your occupation is so good. You already applied your 189, that's good. Why did you come to 190 and 491? Why did you come in WA? Seriously, come down WA, make it worth your while, and then see what happens, okay? Chetna has asked a question, can we change the state after getting grant? I think I've answered that. Manish, this Adhikari is such a very common name. Applied to Montgomery, we went through the same pathway. Montgomery, we launched 491 before and later applied 190. We had to withdraw 491 once applied 190. So I believe you have the option available as well. Thank you, Manish. That's a nice way of answering the question. It goes to show that I wasn't lying. Thank you. Arik says, or Arich, chances for ICT support engineer for 190, 90 plus 5 points, EY submitted. Brilliant, Mr. Bassnet, or Mr. looks like it, sorry. So yeah, I think there are very good chances. But what you're not telling me is, are you a WA graduate or not? So that makes a difference in terms of your invitation, right? Oh, questions are brilliant. So let's just jump there. I love the questions, by the way. I've got 8 minutes to run through questions, right? What are the chances for international school teachers from Mauritius? Doesn't matter where you're from. If you have qualified and you've been assessed and you've been deemed by the assessing body down here, you meet all the requirements, You're as good as a teacher from wherever you are, So that's my email address. Brilliant. Thank you, Janvi, for putting that. If the hatch is, I have done associate engineer in mechanical dies and mold, so you're a die maker. Yeah, that's good. Look, your occupation is good. So you could be under the mechanical engineering technician or those kind of occupations that come into that. You need a skills assessment, okay, if they hatch. So if you're not sure, or if you're overseas, you want to go through the overseas pathway skills assessment, or you're stuck in that, you have my contact, email me, okay? So then I can understand that. Jumping very quickly to Paul's question, which state is the best in this time to move out for getting PR? I don't know. I'm not kidding you. I've got so many fellows who have moved from New South Wales, from Victoria, Tasmania. They're all coming to WA because they realized in their respective states, those three that just mentioned, to try to get their own 190, they are struggling on 90-95, but then they want to come down here and they're still hoping for a 190, let alone a 491. So WA seems to be good. WA seems to have a very good quota, although they've invited a lot. Fingers crossed, man. I think for the next, seriously, 2 to 3 years, we are into not just Zoom time, we are into the boom time. I like this Zoom thing. So Bianca, okay, Bianca, when will the next round for the invites be? Okay, it's usually the third week of every month. Today is the 19th. If you go by what's been happening from August, September, November, December, it has always been after the 20th of those months. So fingers crossed. Today is the 19th. Tomorrow it might happen again at 4:27, which they're notorious for inviting people in the evening when people are going home. Maybe it might be a good sign. They might invite everybody just before the Chinese Lunar New Year this weekend. Brilliant, right? None of you knew that. Some of you knew. Wangchuk. Okay, I like this name. I knew a lot of clients named Wangchuk. When is the next invitation round? I think I've answered that. Kumar Pradeep, what are the chances of 190 chef, 75 points EUI? Already have invite for 491. So if you've been invited and you're 491, you're on 75 points. If you're a WA grad, 75 points. Pushing. 80, 85 seems very good for chefs at the moment. Venkat, hi sir, any WA 190 invitations for baker occupation in the last round? Don't think so. Baker, you gotta go and check. I'm just trying to move away from my screen, but hey, Venkat, do this. Just send me. I can find that out for you, Venkat. Just email me separately, okay, Venkat, and I can tell you, bakers and whatnot. So I want to find that out for you. Juhil has come back. Hi, I'm based in Queensland, waiting for an invite with 80 points of my own, working as a civil engineer for 2 years. EOI launched in August 2022. I'm thinking to move to WA. Yeah, why not? You see, if you move to WA, you are waiting for an invite with 80 points. 80 points for 190. Hard. It's very hard for Schedule 2 because 3 years of experience is going to give you 10 points. 5 points you already got for 1 year of experience if that's your occupation. If nothing else, if you moved here from a job perspective, you will be able to learn something very, very good in the oil and gas and the mining industry at the same time. And if your visa keeps you down here, you can go through employer-sponsored visa if everything else fails, right? So I think you should take a chance, personally. You're welcome, Akash. Amna Kaleem, I got PTE. Good. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions to go. I got PTE 7 band, done bachelor's in software engineering. Okay, I got 7 band, done bachelor's software engineering. Have 5 years of experience in marketing. I'm in Pakistan. Can I get skill visa or immigration? Yes, you can. But you just got to decide which field though. If you studied something that's in an accredited pathway, let's get your skills assessment done first, and don't touch your marketing bit. Engineering should be what you should go by because you already got 7 band, which is very, very good. Definitely, I think skill visa should be something that you should be looking at. Happy to look into your profile, email me, break it down, and then we can see what your chances are and we can move from there. Hamid, when can we expect the next round? I think, Hamid, I've answered the question. It's usually the 3rd week of the month. Umair, what's the prospects of Masters in International Tourism and Hospitality Management? The fact that you got a hospitality background, what you should worry about is you need to find an occupation that is on the skills list at the moment. So if you're looking at hotel motel manager, which is on the list, so you need to work 1 year, 20 hours a week for 1 year. In the last 5 years, you can get a skills assessment from WebAssess. Unfortunately, you cannot get the assessment fast enough because their fast track is just ridiculous. It's just taking forever. It might take 4 to 5 months before you can get a skills assessment and before you can put in something, and then you can try to get something. I hope that helps. Danush, I have 65 points and I need to know which states are good for moving out for chef position. You're talking about chef position to work or to apply? But I suppose I know what your question is. 65 points. Goodness me. Tough. Very tough. Because 65 points of your own or the state, I don't know, you didn't mention that. I can't say move to WA. I'm just, look, I like WA. I think WA has been very kind to a lot of people. But if you stay in some of the other states, it seems to be harder and harder, right? So you can move to South Australia. You can live and work for 6 months and meet their requirements depending on which part of Adelaide that you live, and try to meet their 491 requirements. So that's something that you can look at the same time. Perhaps that helps. Good to know. Muhammad Ashan reply. I don't know what that means. So I think okay, maybe if you send me some email, I can reply to that. You're welcome from Mauritius. I'm happy to provide some information to you. Ryan Hall, what happens if I've lodged a 491 and then I get an invite? Then I get an invite. I got an invite for 189 and then I lodged that. Can these 2 visas run concurrently at the time for one? If I was on a 482? No, you can't run concurrently. Yeah, so you got to be mindful because the 189 is a permanent visa. You are on a 482 as it is, Ryan. But you said if you have lodged, but I suppose you haven't. So this scenario is a supposition, Ryan. So if it's something more concrete, happy to email me, and I will not just reply to you in email. By the way, if you leave your number, I'm happy to give you a 5 minutes call and just clarify anything. And I think sometimes that helps. So for all those who have tuned in until now, and if your question has been posed, and if you still needed something, I'm very, very, very liberal with my time. People down here in my office knows me. You've emailed me, you've put in your contact number, and if you have a specific question, sometimes an email doesn't really help. I'm happy to just give you a quick call and clarify that. Way happy to do that, okay? So let's see if I can take the penultimate last question, if I can say so. Is 401, Muhammad Hassan. How many nominations you get in one financial year? Can we get 190 in new financial year and we have already been invited for 400? Yeah, of course. So perfect question. So if you have been invited in this financial year for 491, if I understand your question correctly, this financial year for 491, you've been invited and you've accepted it, okay, and you've lodged, right? You cannot be invited again for 190 in this financial year. Just remember that, okay? But if you're still on a bridging visa, right? So if you're not granted yet, remember that the trick here is that you can be invited because sometimes it takes a long time to grant that. So a lot of them play around. Just when did you get invited? before you try to accept the 190. So you can only be invited and approved in one financial year for one visa, right? Somebody has asked, what is your email address? I believe it's been posted, and that concludes my presentation today. I shall try to see if you've been looking at this. Probably I can cut and paste all this information and hopefully answer this person here by posting my email address again. Now, I hope that's been helpful. I'm really very excited about this at the same time, because I think we're looking for it's going to be a good time. Buckle up, seat belts on, enjoy the ride, and if you still have any more questions, let me know. Otherwise, Sat Sri Akal from Perth, WA, and from Aussizz Canning Wheel, Dharmindher Singh signing off. Let me know if you've got any other questions. See you guys. Cheers. This is the time I'm supposed to be quiet, I think.